Hello, I'm Mantastic'c and Fantastic, and today I'm going to talk about the new evolutions and upgrades that have just gone live in North America. So, as a whole, I love updates like this because it gives us a chance to actually utilize potentially older cards in maybe meaningful ways. Furthermore, as more and more Pantheon cards start gaining weapon assist, it gives you a bit less pain when you roll them over and over again because there's a chance they might have value. So without further ado, let's just take a look at all the new upgrades and evolutions. So for this entire series, of all the 5 upcoming weapon assists, they all will share the same type of awakenings. They'll have 20% of each resist, a team HP, and then 2 enhanced orbs of their respective color. Now, these awakenings are nice. There are lots of times where you may have 80% resistance, but you also need a team HP. This is something I was actually encountering kind of recently. I forgot what team it was for, but I was like, I have 80% blind resist. I really want 100, and I need a team HP, and I have nothing that gives you team HP plus a 20% resist. So these weapons can definitely plug that hole. The orb enhances are obviously meaningful for those monocolored teams, and if the active skill tied to the card itself is helpful, well, this becomes a much more meaningful weapon assist. So for Minerva, she gives you 100% defense break and then piercing through the damage void for 2 turns. As a general statement, most monocolor teams don't have to worry about damage void because VDP is quite accessible, but for Rosalind teams, I found it quite nice to have a void damage void. It came in the form of my Rudra weapon, but Minerva is definitely a decent alternative. Obviously not as great because the defense void is probably insignificant, but maybe if you need to have void damage void, it can be meaningful. But again, if you're not using it even for the active, the awakenings are still reasonably helpful. For Neptune, he gives us actually a leader swap active skill on a 22 turn cooldown. Now, the Gung-Ho collab had many of those 6-star, 7-star cards, whatever the top rarity cards are, and there's 1 in each color. Each of them provides a leader swap, but there are no awakenings, but it's an 18, not 22 turn cooldown. And for Neptune, you obviously want to try and leverage a team that actually utilizes the enhanced water orbs. Naturally, mono water works, or if you're playing a team that actually converts water to XYZ color for them, it can be relevant because those enhanced water orbs will carry over for the the transition of changing orbs. So that could be useful in that regards. But for a 22 turn cooldown, you think, is it really going to be worthwhile those extra 4 turns of stalling you need to swap? And then at the same time, what 7x6 or what 6x5 leader can we use that will make it better? Right now, Royal Oak and Natsuro are the best water teams, and they can pair with various things. Like Natsuro can pair with Kaiba, can pair with Velkhana, and you already have 7x6. Royal Oak, you can't use him as a leader swap because Royal Oak is a transforming card. You're never going to be able to transform him and swap him into place. So you're going to be using either a lesser version, like the blue card from Gung-Ho Collab, who's very similar activation requirements. Maybe you could argue use her on 7x6 if you don't have your own Royal Oak. Possibilities there, but the point of the matter is I don't think it's truly needed at this exact moment for mono water. But at the same time, if you have lots of Neptunes like myself, you probably could convert them to a weapon assist, assuming you get the new evolution material to drop. Next is Ceres, and I find Ceres is actually a pretty decent card, even with her super reincarnated form. She's a decently strong cleric that gives passive damage, enhanced healing, and a cleric style active skill. Obviously not as good as Alina, who has definitely eclipsed her, and of course Gung-Ho Belial, but it's a Pantheon card. It's still useful. If you don't have those 2 clerics, she's probably the best option for your Nautilus teams. And this weapon assist is always useful. Like I said, these awakenings are nice, and the active skill is a full cleric style active skill. So if you don't have any full cleric style active skills, here's a Pantheon card that does so, and it gives you actually decent awakenings. Obviously, you want to take advantage of the enhanced orbs and the resist if applicable, but hey, 10 turn cooldown for a full bind, awoken bind, and unmatchable clear. Useful thing overall. I may just make one myself, even though I have the more premier weapon assist. There may be a day where I actually need to have these specific awakenings. Maybe, maybe not. Next is Venus, and I feel like Venus is a bit of a awkward card because the active skill is a 3-turn base cooldown. It's going to charge up way too quickly, and sure, you get to remove orb blocks and RCV and movement time buff, but is that exactly what you wanted? You may want to inherit a higher impact active skill. Conversely, if you need orb movement time and RCV buff, this is obviously a solution, but I feel like it's a bit more situational. These types of active skills that are exceptionally short cooldown with a small but useful effect tends to be much more valuable on the base card they're using as a sub or as your leader. For Hades' Bracelet, he gives you 2 turns of damage absorb void. We love that stuff. Most content needs at least damage absorb in some way, shape, or form, and having 2 turns can be meaningful if you're playing content where there's back-to-back spawns, such as AA3. or sure a 3, but I don't know if we could really justify using this there. But it gives a 25% gravity, which can be cool as well, and then full unmatchable clear. Probably not going to really be able to take advantage of all the different aspects to their fullest extent, but it's okay. And, like, I don't know, I just feel like for other 2-turn damage absorb counters, there are stronger options available, but again, this is the Pantheon card, so we needed to taper or cater our expectations accordingly. Next are upgrades, and Avalon Drake is just going nuts. So we're not going to look at the base form because it's their evolve form that's really the exciting part. Because in their evolve form, they have 3 wood rows, Nautilus team says hello, 4 skill boosts with 5 or 6 skill boosts with their Super Awakening, transforming teams hello. You also get skill bind resist, which could be meaningful. You have a 7, a 10 combo, and a VDP. So you have meaningful personal damage, you have 6 skill boosts, you have passive damage. Just this alone is actually quite nice. And then we go to their active skill, which is actually meaningful as well. You get +2 combos and void damage absorption for 2 turns. I just mentioned we want to have 2 turns of damage absorption, and Shura 3 needs this. AA3 can have back-to-back spawns. Obviously, Shura 1 will have it like multiple absorb spawns scattered throughout, but on a 12-turn cooldown, it's definitely manageable. And you also get to remove orb blocks and change all orbs to wood and light. So that's a pretty bright idea overall, because you're going to have a bicolor board with massive amounts of damage. Just don't use your Nautilus right after, because then you're going to have a board of only light orbs. I mean, wood orbs. You won't get combos, might be a little awkward, but you won't be able to make the VP. Either the way, the point of the matter is use Nautilus first, then pop Avalon Drake, get Nautilus's buff carried over, use Avalon Drake. So I like this active skill overall. Yes, their weighted stats are definitely weaker, but their attack stat just got buffed up. And again, 7-10 combo with VDP, meaningful amounts of personal damage. It's not going to be a double damage cap card, I feel, overall, because it's probably just not going to hit hard enough, but maybe, no, I don't think it's really going to be possible. But the point of the matter is, a great Nautilus sub with a meaningful active skill, huge amounts of skill boost, passive damage, and respectable personal damage. I like this card overall. Next is Chester, and Chester in their base form has lots of skill bind resist, which is good for fairies, but I don't really think I could squeeze them in on a fairies team, because fairies teams tends to be best for like sure 2-3 exceptionally hard stuff. The excess transformation is not necessary for like easier content. I feel it's just going to slow you down, so a little awkward there. You do have 4 skill boosts, you have God Killer, Physical Killer. It's just not enough damage. It's not going to really happen. You get to reduce you have full unmatchable and full awoken skill bind clear, and you change hazards to heal. Like, it's something, but I feel like it's just not going to compete against other cleric options. If you have Wrath or Aragi from Monogatari collab, there's just better clerics overall. For their pixel form, they have a 5-turn bind, awoken bind, and unmatchable clear. You get 6 dark orbs, which is, I guess, kind of cool. You get a 10% gravity, but like, it's a 5-turn clear. It's like you are competing against Gung-Ho Belial as well at the same time as a cleric. It's just hard, I feel. And there's only 2 skill boosts. It's not that many. It's just a little awkward. Jammers is cool. The insignificant amounts of personal damage, unless they're a god, physical, and balance type spawn, but I doubt that's going to be the case. For Super Reincarnated Haku, her active skill gives you a 50% health heal. I don't know why that's really I don't really foresee that truly being meaningful, but I guess it's a thing. And their leader skill gives you a higher attack multiplier, which is definitely meaningful. And I'm not sure if the TPA buff came with this patch, may or may not have, but there's a buff coming up at some point where TPAs will do 1.8 instead of 1.5 times damage. So Haku will now become a significantly stronger damage stick for TPAs. And in fact, Haku's systems are actually able to tackle Training Arena 3 in meaningful ways, because those TPAs can deal massive amounts of damage, double damage caps possible. It's obviously an investment, but it could be easier than using just Gung-Ho Belials and matching 10 combos. Something to think about for the future. For her pixel form, you have respectable damage if your attack stat wasn't complete garbage, and these weighted stats are so low, it's just going to be hard, because you do get a full bind, awoken bind clear, and you change the orbs to fire, water, dark, but like, their stats are just so low, it's going to be hard. The personal damage is going to be quite low. Like, there are other clerics available, and I just feel like it's just not going to outpace them. For her earring, you get 20% blind resist. It's 20% more blind resist than before, so I will take it. Like I said, there are instances where you want to have a bit more blind resist, so why not bring it in something that's actually providing useful other awakenings? And then her story mode is actually quite strong now. Her active skill has been changed to give a slight cooldown reduction. It's 8 instead of 9 turns. It's better than nothing. And her super awakenings, she now can gain super jammer. So now she can be super blind and super jammer resist. That's quite an impressive thing for a card, with also respectable personal damage, especially against dragon and god types. You also have 2 skill boosts, not terrible, and it's still a reasonable leader skill overall. As a whole, I think this is definitely a nice buff, considering it's a, well, if you have, well, I guess you were able to acquire Haku, so it is a farmable card overall. Next is Ra, and Ra actually has a 7 combo super awakening, so he has 7, 10, and a 7. So double 7, double 10, that's 4 times 5, 20 times personal damage, and a reasonably large attack stat because this goes higher as you get more and more levels and pluses. And it's not bad overall. Like, it can definitely function and be a damage stick. You have super blind resist, you have 2 team HPs, reasonable card overall. The drawback is their active skill is a little underwhelming, unless you're using it for a button, which is what his weapon assist does best. The button aspect is useless in, like, say, any Shura dungeon. You also only have an orb movement time buff. Yes, it's for 7 turns, so I guess you have a permanent movement time buff, but is that worth an entire active skill slot? Really not the case. Their leader skill gives you bonus combos now, instead of just being like no bonus combos. So that's 10 combos, actually more achievable. You do have an exceptionally large attack multiplier. You have 50% damage reduction. Like, it's not bad overall, but the problem is you need to have 5 attributes. And, like, you do actually have large amounts of damage reduction, so you need 5 attributes. So maybe 7x6 swapping could be a good approach for Ra, because you get the bigger board. It's going to be just easier to deal with, easier to hit your rainbow activation. But again, I just feel like rainbow teams are just underwhelming compared to monocolor. For Ra, in their weapon assist, you have 20% blind resist. We mostly use Ra's weapon for the button aspect, but there may be times where you want a skill boost, you want more orb enhances, and hey, why not give yourself some blind resist? But a great button for farming. And now we come to, can't pronounce their name, they're a red TPA card. So like Rex Raptor has TPAs, they have TPAs, Grigory likes TPAs, just never actually is useful at this point in time. Maybe at some point in the future we'll have a place to utilize red TPA cards. I said Rosalind teams are a possibility because the bigger board and just the fact that you have so many red orbs means TPAs are probably going to be achievable. And their active skill is quite nice. You get to remove orb blocks and change all orbs to fire, wood, and dark, and then pierce through damage void for 1 turn. So TPA-oriented teams need to have a way to solve voids. This is definitely a way to do so. This card has 7 combo, 10 combo super awakening, lots of TPAs, huge amounts of personal damage potentially. Could be a double damage cap card, and maybe your Rosalind teams could make use of it. It's a board changer to actually deal with Senri later on in Shura 3. Just maybe things to keep in the back of your mind, but it doesn't solve much mechanics overall. Like, you're piercing through damage void. Maybe that's helpful, maybe it's not. It doesn't give you a movement time buff or an RCV buff or anything along those lines, so I feel like it's a reasonable card. Maybe we find a red TPA card that's truly amazing and then a team that can take advantage of it. This card, I feel, would gain more value in the future. Diao Chan gained half a second more of movement time, and there was a point in time where Diao Chan was just one of the absolute best subs in the game. It's been years since that statement was actually true. She does gain 3 turns of Awoken Bind clearing through her active skill instead of 2. Like, these are nice, but it's just not going to change the way we use them. I haven't used them for years, unfortunately. Next is Famule, and Famule has lots of TPAs. So again, TPAs will be stronger in the future. And remember, 10 combo, 7 combo, 4 TPAs, large amounts of personal damage, a respectable attack stat. Definitely something of interest if TPAs actually become relevant. They do have super poison resist still. Like, they're a reasonably nice card overall. Their active skill reduces bind and awoken binds by 8 turns. 8 turns is enough for most content. Not all content, but most content that's actually sufficient, which is pleasant overall. Remove orb blocks and change the board to wood, water, light, and dark. So it's a reasonable thing. Again, if TPA does end up becoming more prevalent and prominent, Famule might have a bit more usage overall. And that concludes all the various buffs that have been that have gone live in North America. As a whole, I like the new weapon assist. Haku will be definitely a force to be reckoned with when we actually have that TP buff. Maybe it happened now, maybe it hasn't. It's going to happen at some point. Avalon Drake just became a monstrously great mono wood card overall. Definitely something to consider about slotting into your mono wood teams because it's just covering lots of important aspects overall. And then finally, the weapon assist for like Hades, Venus, etc. Like, I like these awakenings. It's not a bad thing to have, assuming you can take advantage of as many of them as possible, and maybe the active skill has merits. With that being said, let me know what you think about these cards in the comments below. Which one of these are the most exciting for yourself? But regardless of all that, hopefully you all have a truly fantastic day. I wish you all the best luck in your own pad adventures. And on a slight tangent, because I like to give health updates every once in a while, I saw my ocular oncologist on Tuesday. It's Thursday currently today. Ocular oncologist is an eye cancer specialist. I have a lump in my eye. We don't know what it is. We've done surgery to try and do a biopsy. It was unsuccessful, terribly painful and unpleasant experience overall. And I just continuously go back for constant monitoring to make sure it's not growing. And the good news is it hasn't grown in the past year. And in fact, maybe it's slightly smaller, which is a great sign. We've been monitoring this since 2016. So we've been about 5 years at this point in time. And if it's getting smaller on its own, or at least staying still, it's a good sign it's not malignant, more likely to be benign. It could be, I can't pronounce the word she pronounced, various medical terms for something that is just benign. It's not harmful. It shouldn't be there. I still need to keep going back to being monitored because, again, it shouldn't be there, and I'm a reasonably young person as well. But it's still good news overall, and my eyes weren't dilated for 48 hours. They usually are dilated for 48 hours afterwards, but maybe she's less strong drops, or maybe just all the excessive napping I did on Tuesday and Wednesday helped. But either way, positive news for myself overall. One less health issue to worry about, at least until I go back next year. But either way, hopefully you all have a truly fantastic day. I wish you all the best luck in your own pad adventures, and happy puzzling.